Peace talks between Russia and Ukraine are on life support. The US, a key mediator in the conflict, is signaling its growing frustration. The Trump administration had hoped for a swift resolution. However, progress has been elusive. Sources say the US is now considering walking away from the negotiating table. This decision comes as a blow to hopes for a diplomatic end to the years-long conflict. The lack of progress has disappointed the Trump administration. President Trump had aimed for an early foreign policy victory. However, Russia has shown little interest in compromise. The Kremlin has been unwilling to engage on key issues. This includes a proposed ceasefire agreement. US officials have spent significant time and effort on the negotiations. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been a vocal advocate for a peaceful resolution. However, the US is now signaling a potential shift in strategy. The patience of the Trump administration is wearing thin. The potential consequences of a US withdrawal are unclear. However, it could have a significant impact on the region. It is also likely to further strain the already tense US-Russia relationship. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio issued a stark warning this week. He stated that the U.S. may abandon the peace talks. This is a significant escalation in rhetoric from the Trump administration. It underscores the seriousness of the situation. The warning came after a proposed 30-day ceasefire failed. The ceasefire was intended to create a window for negotiations. However, it collapsed within days. Both sides accused the other of violating the agreement. Rubio placed the blame squarely on Russia. He accused the Kremlin of undermining the peace process. He stated that Russia was not committed to a negotiated settlement. He warned that the U.S. would not be party to endless talks without progress. The U.S. is demanding concrete steps from Russia. This includes a verifiable ceasefire and withdrawal of heavy weaponry. Until then, the future of the peace talks remains uncertain. The stalled peace talks highlight the divergent positions of Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine has shown a willingness to negotiate. The government in Kiev sees a peaceful resolution as the best way to end the conflict. Ukraine has repeatedly stated its commitment to a diplomatic solution. It has agreed to a number of concessions in principle. This includes granting greater autonomy to the separatist-held regions in eastern Ukraine. Russia, however, has been less willing to compromise. The Kremlin denies direct involvement in the conflict. It claims that the separatists are acting independently. However, there is overwhelming evidence of Russian military support for the separatists. Russia's motives remain unclear. Some analysts believe that Russia is using the conflict to destabilize Ukraine. Others believe that Russia is seeking to expand its territory. Whatever the reason, Russia's uncooperative stance is the main obstacle to peace. Section 4. The U.S. at a crossroads. The U.S. faces a difficult decision in Ukraine. Continuing to engage in fruitless negotiations seems pointless. However, walking away could have serious consequences. One option is to increase military aid to Ukraine. This would provide the Ukrainian government with the means to defend itself. However, it could also escalate the conflict. Russia has warned against such a move. Another option is to impose stricter sanctions on Russia. This would target Russia's already struggling economy. However, it could also backfire. It could push Russia closer to China. The Trump administration is divided on the best course of action. Some officials favor a more hawkish approach. They believe that Russia will only respond to strength. Others favor continued diplomacy. They argue that there is still a chance for a negotiated settlement. Section 5. A looming shadow over Eastern Europe. The stalled peace talks cast a long shadow over Eastern Europe. The conflict in Ukraine has already claimed thousands of lives. It has displaced millions more. A failure to reach a peaceful resolution would be a tragedy for the region. The conflict has also strained relations between Russia and the West. It has led to a new Cold War. This has resulted in increased military spending and heightened tensions. The international community must remain engaged in the search for peace. The U.S. in particular has a responsibility to use its influence to bring the conflict to an end. The alternative is a protracted and bloody stalemate. This would be a disaster for Ukraine and a threat to European security.